Have you ever stood in the middle of a crowded room, voices swirling around you, laughter bouncing off the walls, faces passing by like waves in an endless ocean, and yet somewhere deep inside you felt utterly alone? You look around. Everyone seems connected, absorbed in the moment. But within you, there's a quiet, undeniable whisper. This is not where you belong. It's not fear. It's not shyness. It's not that you don't know how to talk to people. No, it's something far deeper. Something ancient, something sacred. A separation that isn't social, it's spiritual. A mark etched into your soul long before you could understand it. You are tuned to a different frequency, and no matter how loud the world gets, your spirit refuses to blend into the noise. And today, I'm going to show you why. By the end of this video, you will no longer question this feeling. You will see it for what it truly is. Not a flaw, not a weakness, but a divine seal over your life. A sign that heaven has set you apart for something the crowd could never contain. So stay until the final word, because what you hear today might just shift the way you see yourself forever. And before we go any further, tap that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet, and comment 99 below. Because in the language of the Spirit, 9 is the number of divine completion. And today, something inside you is about to be completed. When a chosen one walks into a room, they don't just see faces and hear voices. They feel the entire atmosphere wrap around them like an unseen cloak. Every glance, every tone of voice, every unspoken tension in the air, it all seeps in. The rest of the world might stroll through a crowded space without noticing a thing, but the chosen? They are tuned differently. Their spirit is like a finely calibrated instrument, catching frequencies most people don't even know exist. That laugh from the corner, it's not joy, it's masking insecurity. That friendly smile, beneath it, envy burns. That casual conversation, it's laced with competition, with comparison, with silent judgments no one says out loud. And while others can ignore it, you can't. You feel it, you carry it. Crowds are not just gatherings of people. They are storms of energy, swirling, colliding, clashing. Pride drips into the air like perfume. Jealousy hangs heavy, thicker than smoke. Anxiety pulses like a low hum beneath the chatter. Hidden pain vibrates just beneath the surface. And you are the one who catches every note of it. Not because you're weak, not because you're too sensitive, but because God hardwired you to notice what others miss. He gave you a spirit that hears the whispers behind the words, that feels the weight behind the smile, that senses the battle behind the polite mask. This is why a room full of people can drain you faster than running a marathon. You're not just navigating bodies, you're walking through invisible weather. Imagine stepping outside into a storm you can't see but can feel in your bones. The pressure changes. The air feels thick. Your chest tightens. That's what it's like for you in certain crowds. And here's the thing. This isn't a flaw to fix. This is a divine filter, a supernatural alarm system built to protect your mission. You see, not every environment deserves your presence. Not every atmosphere is safe for what you carry. If you could block it all out, you'd miss the signals heaven is sending. That heaviness you feel? It's a warning. That sudden fatigue? It's a shield pulling you out before something poisons your spirit. God didn't make you this way to torture you. He made you this way to guard you. But here's where it gets even deeper. Your sensitivity isn't just about protection. It's also about assignment. You weren't given this spiritual radar to hide from the world forever. You were given it so you could walk into a space and immediately know, this is where I'm meant to be, or this is where I must not linger. You can walk into a room and feel the exact point where peace ends and chaos begins. That's not paranoia. That's precision. And while others get trapped in places they were never meant to be, you feel the nudge to leave long before the danger shows its face. Still, this gift comes at a cost. Carrying other people's emotions without knowing it can exhaust you. Being surrounded by too many conflicting energies can leave you feeling heavy for hours, even days. That's why God will often lead you away from certain environments before you even understand why. You'll get that sudden urge to step outside or head home early, and only later will you realize that was divine intervention disguised as intuition. Some will misunderstand this about you. They'll say you're antisocial, distant, or overreacting. But they can't see the weight you carry when you walk into certain places. They don't know how exhausting it is to feel what no one else admits. They don't know the spiritual warfare that happens in silence while you stand in that room. And they don't need to, because the one who sent you does know. And he honors your obedience every time you listen to that inner pull. You've probably noticed something else. When you're in the right place, around the right people, the opposite happens. Instead of feeling drained, you feel lighter, stronger. Your mind clears, your heart opens, your spirit rises. That's the proof. That's how you know this isn't all in your head. It's real. Your environment either feeds your spirit or starves it. And God has been teaching you to tell the difference. So the next time you walk into a crowded space and that quiet heaviness begins to settle over you, don't brush it off. Don't push it down. Don't shame yourself for wanting to leave. That's your spirit saying, "This is not for you. Your peace is too valuable to spend here." And maybe, just maybe, the reason you've been feeling this more often lately is because heaven is getting ready to move you into rooms where your energy will no longer be drained, but multiplied. In the noise of a large gathering, words float like confetti, colorful, fleeting, and ultimately weightless. People talk fast, laugh loud, and move from one topic to the next without ever pausing long enough to go beneath the surface. Conversations spin around gossip, small victories, trivial complaints, and whatever the crowd finds entertaining in the moment. To most, it feels normal. It feels alive. But to you, it feels hollow. You stand there, listening, waiting for the opening to share something real, something that could shift the atmosphere. But when you speak, the weight of your words falls like a stone into shallow water. Ripples fade quickly, and the crowd simply moves on. It's not that they dislike you. It's not even that they disagree with you. It's that the frequency of your spirit is tuned to a depth they haven't learned to swim in. You don't carry words just to fill silence. You carry revelations, insights, and truths that cut through illusions. And truth is not always welcome in a place where distraction reigns. Crowds are built to keep moving, to keep laughing, to keep circling the same safe topics that never demand transformation. And you were never made for that cycle. This is why, no matter how eloquently you speak, the room rarely shifts. They might smile politely, nod as if they understand, but they're already reaching for the next easy subject. And if you're not careful, you can start to believe that the problem is you, that you need to be more like them, speak lighter, shrink your message so it fits. But the truth is liberating. You were never called to speak to the crowd. You were called to speak to hearts. A heart is not moved by the volume of words. It's moved by the weight of truth. And weight takes time to feel. It takes stillness. It takes a space that the crowd, by its very nature, cannot provide. That's why your deepest thoughts often come alive not in the middle of the noise, but in quiet conversations, in moments when distractions fade and eyes actually meet. That's where your words don't just land, they take root. And here's something most won't tell you. Even in silence, you are speaking. Without opening your mouth, you can disrupt the atmosphere of a room. Your very presence is a message, a reminder of something deeper, purer, more eternal than what's being discussed. People may not be able to name it, but they feel it. It's why some grow uncomfortable when you enter, why others suddenly shift the subject, why a few can't stop glancing at you even when you haven't said a word. Because light disrupts darkness, not by arguing with it, not by attacking it, but simply by existing. The brightness of your spirit forces others to confront shadows they'd rather ignore. And this too is why your words often don't land in certain spaces, because they weren't meant to land there. You are not a fisherman casting a net over the masses. You are a gardener planting seeds in the soil of the willing. The danger is that when you are surrounded by people who cannot receive you, you can begin to mute yourself. You start filtering every thought, watering down every truth, trimming the edges of what you feel so it won't cut too deep. But here's the cost. When you silence your soul to fit into shallow waters, you drown in your own depth. Your spirit was not designed to tread water in conversations that never go beyond the surface. Instead, you must embrace the reality that the most important things you carry will not be understood by the majority. And that's not a failure. It's confirmation. The crowd may applaud the entertainer, but heaven backs the messenger. And while your audience may sometimes be one person in a corner rather than 100 in the room, that one heart might be the very reason you were sent there. So the next time you feel your words slide off the surface of distracted minds, remember, it's not rejection, it's redirection. Heaven is teaching you to stop casting pearls into places where they'll be trampled, and instead, to save them for the souls who will hold them like treasure. And maybe, that's why, even now, certain people's names are coming to your mind. People you barely spoke to, yet you know, somehow, your presence stirred something in them. Something they'll remember long after the crowd forgets you were ever there. And what if the real reason you were in that room was not to speak to many, but to awaken just one? You step into a room. The lighting is warm. The smiles are wide. The music is soft in the background. On the surface, it looks perfect. A place where anyone else might feel instantly at ease. But you feel something shift inside you the moment you cross the threshold. It's subtle at first. A faint tightening in your chest. A sudden weight in the air. A quiet voice deep within whispering, "Something here is not what it seems." You look around and see nothing out of place, yet your spirit is already on high alert. For the chosen, this isn't paranoia, it's perception. It's a form of sight that goes beyond sight, a radar that scans not the room's furniture but its atmosphere. Most people see only what's visible, the friendly greetings, the laughter, the handshakes, the posed smiles. But you see, or rather you sense, the undercurrents. You can feel the sharp edges hidden beneath soft words, the silent rivalries masked as polite conversation, the heaviness of someone's unspoken pain hovering like a shadow no one else notices. This inner alarm is not a defect, it's a divine feature. God installs it in those He calls for higher purposes, because you cannot afford to be blindsided by what others ignore. It's not about suspicion, it's about survival. In the spiritual realm, danger rarely announces itself with fanfare. Darkness doesn't always walk in with a roar. Sometimes it slips in with a smile. And your discernment is the line of defense heaven has given you to detect it before it takes root near you. Here's the thing. You will rarely be able to explain why you suddenly feel uneasy in a place where everyone else is comfortable. Try to put it into words and it sounds strange, even dramatic. I don't know, I just feel something. And that's exactly why many chosen ones learn to keep it to themselves. Not everyone is meant to understand the language of your spirit. But heaven does, and heaven expects you to listen. How many times have you left a place early without knowing why, only to find out later that something happened after you left? A fight broke out, a betrayal surfaced, a situation escalated. That's not coincidence. That's your spirit picking up on frequencies the natural senses can't register. This is also why you sometimes meet someone for the first time, and despite their charm, something in you resists. They've said all the right things, done all the right gestures, yet your soul whispers, "Do not open the door to this one." Weeks, months, or even years later, the truth emerges. Deception, manipulation, hidden malice. And you realize, your spirit saw it long before your eyes did. The world is full of people who operate purely by what they see and hear, and that's why they get caught off guard. But the chosen walk in a realm where sensing is as critical as breathing. You were given this gift not just to avoid harm, but to navigate with precision toward your assignment. Sometimes, the most spiritual thing you can do is walk away before the threat has a chance to reveal itself. But here's the challenge. There will be times when you feel that pull to leave, and everything in your mind argues against it. Don't be rude. Don't overthink it. You're imagining things. And yet, that still, persistent warning remains. If you choose to stay, you'll feel it draining you, unsettling you, pressing against your peace until you finally understand. Your spirit will not compromise with danger, even if your mind tries to. So trust it. Trust it without needing a second opinion. Trust it without needing visible proof. You don't need to gather evidence for why you left a room. You don't owe anyone an explanation for why you suddenly distanced yourself from someone. Your peace is proof enough. Heaven knows what it's protecting you from. And maybe the most important part. This gift is sharpening. The more you listen to it, the faster it speaks. The more you obey it, the more detailed it becomes. Until one day you won't just know when to leave a space, you'll know exactly why. And if you're wondering right now why this sense has been so active in you lately, maybe it's because something or someone you haven't yet seen has already seen you. And heaven is making sure they never get close enough to touch what you carry. The world craves noise. It feeds on it, breathes it in like oxygen. People fill every quiet moment with music, chatter, notifications, anything to avoid the stillness. Silence feels dangerous to them, because in the silence, truths start to surface. In the silence, the questions they've been avoiding get louder, and so they drown it out, running from it as if stillness were a predator. But for the chosen, silence is not something to run from, it's something to run toward. While the crowd flees stillness, you seek it. Not because you're antisocial, not because you're boring, but because you've learned that silence isn't empty. It's full. It's full of presence, of revelation, of divine instruction you can't hear anywhere else. There's a reason you've never been able to thrive in constant noise. God didn't design you to live in the chaos of endless voices. He designed you to be able to recognize His voice, and His voice rarely shouts. He speaks in whispers, He nudges, He moves in subtle impressions that get lost in the roar of the world. And that's why He draws you away. Not to isolate you as punishment, but to isolate you for intimacy. The sanctuary of silence is where vision sharpens. When the distractions fade, you suddenly see the patterns you missed before. You remember the promises you'd forgotten. You hear strategies for battles you didn't even know were coming. The noise of the world numbs you, but the stillness of God awakens you. Solitude for the chosen is not the absence of people, it's the presence of clarity. It's the training ground where your faith grows roots deep enough to withstand storms. It's the space where God can remove the voices that compete with His, until you can tell without hesitation, this is Him. This is His instruction. This is my next step. And yet, because the world doesn't understand this, it tries to shame you for it. Why are you so quiet? Why don't you go out more? Why do you keep to yourself? They'll interpret your solitude as loneliness, your quietness as weakness. But it's not weakness. It's alignment. It's the posture of someone who understands that peace is not a luxury. It's a weapon. And you are sharpening that weapon every time you choose stillness over noise. Stop apologizing for needing peace. Stop feeling guilty for turning down invitations that would rob you of clarity. The truth is, not everyone can follow you into this space, because not everyone is called to hear what you are about to hear. What God speaks to you in silence is tailored for your spirit, your assignment, your next step. If you miss it, you could end up fighting battles you were never meant to fight, simply because you didn't stop long enough to get your marching orders. This is why so many of your breakthroughs have come in moments when you were alone, in your room with the door shut, on a walk with no phone in your hand, sitting in the stillness when everyone else was asleep. Those weren't coincidences. Those were appointments. Heaven was waiting for the crowd to go quiet so the conversation could finally begin. Silence is not a void. It's an atmosphere where heaven leans in. It's the place where your spirit becomes light enough to rise above the fog of fear and confusion. It's where your vision lifts higher, where your heart steadies, where your faith becomes unshakable. And the enemy knows it. That's why he tries to keep you busy, distracted, surrounded by noise you think you can manage, until one day you realize you haven't truly been alone with God in weeks. But you're different. You've already felt the pull back to the quiet. You've already tasted the depth of what happens there. And once you've heard him in the stillness, nothing else satisfies. Maybe that's why, even now, you've been sensing an urge to pull away from certain things, not because you're tired of people, but because heaven is preparing to speak. And the next thing he's about to tell you could change everything. From the time you were young, there's been a quiet question in your heart. Why do I never seem to fit? You've watched others blend into groups effortlessly, moving with the current, finding belonging in numbers. But for you, there's always been a gap, a space between who you are and where they are. Crowds, no matter how friendly, have never felt like home. And for years, you may have carried that as a wound, thinking, maybe something is wrong with me. But here's the truth you were never told. That gap isn't a flaw, it's a border. And it was drawn there by the hand of God. The discomfort you feel in crowds is not rejection. It's divine separation. It's heaven saying, I did not create you to blend in here. I created you for something they can't see yet. God knows that the purity of your assignment depends on the purity of your environment. Some missions cannot survive contamination. Some callings cannot be diluted by too many voices. And so, he sets his chosen apart, not because they are better than others, but because their task requires a level of clarity, focus, and spiritual sensitivity that the crowd simply cannot maintain. Think about it. The greatest figures in Scripture were rarely found lost in the masses. Moses was raised apart in Pharaoh's palace before leading a nation. David was kept in the fields when his brothers were in the house. Jesus himself often withdrew to lonely places, away from even his closest followers, to receive fresh strength and direction from the Father. Separation has always been a mark of divine preparation, and you are no different. This is why certain rooms have never felt right for you, no matter how hard you tried to adapt. This is why you've walked away from relationships, opportunities, even good environments that others would kill to be part of. Because something in your spirit knew, if I stay here, I'll lose who I am. That's not fear. That's discernment. That's the protective hand of God steering you away from what could weaken the very thing you were born to carry. And here's what's even more powerful. The traits that once made you feel too much or too different are the exact traits heaven stamped onto your soul as proof of your calling. Your deep sensitivity, your craving for truth, your resistance to superficiality, your discomfort with pretense. These are not random quirks. They are the fingerprints of your anointing. They are the signs that you were designed for a work that cannot be done by someone content to move with the herd. Yes, being set apart can feel lonely at times. There will be moments when you wonder if the cost is worth it. But separation always comes before elevation. God will often remove you from the crowd before he reveals why. Because if he told you too soon, you might run back for comfort. He isolates to insulate. He shields to strengthen. He hides you not because you're not ready, but because what you carry is too valuable to be exposed before it's time. So here is the declaration you need to anchor into your soul. You are not strange. You are set apart. And set apart people rarely blend into the crowd. You are being positioned for impact, and that means your path will never look like theirs. While they chase visibility, you are being built for influence that will outlast the noise. While they seek approval, You are being shaped to move with authority that does not need permission. And maybe that's why, lately, the separation has felt even sharper. Perhaps heaven is drawing the line more clearly, pulling you further away from certain people, places, and patterns, not to punish you, but to prepare you. Because where you are going, you cannot carry the weight of everyone's expectations. You cannot afford the luxury of blending in. And if that means walking alone for a season, so be it. Because you will not walk alone forever. God is leading you toward a place, a moment, and a purpose where the separation will suddenly make sense. And when that moment comes, you will see the very things that once made you feel out of place were the same things making space for your destiny. Every time you walked away from the noise, you were not retreating, you were advancing. Every step you took out of places that drained you was a step deeper into the territory heaven reserved for you. Every moment you felt the sting of being different. You were not being pushed out. You were being set apart. You have never been misplaced. You have been positioned, and the world may never fully grasp it, but heaven has been watching, orchestrating, and making room for you where your spirit will not just survive, it will thrive. You were never meant to be understood by the many. You were meant to be recognized by the few, the ones whose spirits are ready to meet the truth you carry, the ones who will not just hear your words, but feel the weight of your calling in the deepest part of their soul.